Please note that everyone is present. Um, If you don't mind, we're going to stand for the opening prayer by Alderman Jeff McKee, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow our heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we love you and we praise your name. We thank you for your son, Jesus, and we just thank you for our town. Lord, what a wonderful place to live and call home, and thank you for our staff and everyone that serves us on a daily basis and takes care of us on ways that we have no idea. And Lord, we just ask for their protection on a daily basis as they do take care of us. Lord, we just lift up this board, ask for wisdom, and Lord, just ask for protection over our town. Lord, we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Mr. Bascom, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I had to put him on the spot.
Always have you in your pocket.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 3rd, 2024 meeting? Motion by Mr. Harmon.
Second.
Second by Mr. Brooks. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes. Next up, we have grievances and comments from citizens. We also, if you're here for specific public hearings and want to speak on those, you would speak on those during that time. But if you want to speak on any particular topic right now, I don't know if you saw the cards out front, we do have some cards out there. If you didn't get one, we can come up and still get your name and address for the record. But is anyone here to speak on any particular topic right now, not specific to the public hearings? Seeing none. Move on to communications from the mayor. Sheriff's Department report. Lieutenant, appreciate you being here. Good evening.
This will be the Sheriff's Office report for July 2024. Moving to the next page past the map. Arlington's looking really good, no violent crime to report. There's a couple of, and I like to present these when I do the report for Lakeland and Arlington, is if we have successful cases, and I like to make mention of those arrests. So the first one, if you'll look at number 2, motor vehicle theft. That was an arrest that took place at the Whataburger where a subject went inside to refill his drink and another person jumped in his vehicle and took off. We were able to catch that person and arrest her, the female. The second arrest is on line 12. It was a RV that was stolen from an RV storage facility, and we were able to work that case and develop a suspect and issue a warrant and arrest that individual and recover the property. On number 6, the shoplifting felony, that is a Lakeland matter, not an Arlington matter. That was at Harbor Freight, and that's in Lakeland. And number 11, theft from motor vehicle. That is a individual who thought he lost a firearm and his roommate pulled it out of his vehicle for him and put it inside the house. So that is not a reported crime, so we can take that off the list as well. So it narrows the number down a little bit. And on 7/14, the unfortunate event of the auto burglary suspects hit the Fairfield, and several vehicles were broken in. I believe the number was 7 vehicles broken into at the Fairfield Hotel. I've observed security there now, so they may have hired some type of security firm to mitigate some of that. But it's easy access from the businesses to the interstate, so it's usually a target of opportunity. But otherwise, to note, there are no violent crimes in the city of Arlington.
On the trailer theft, is it true that the flock cameras helped kind of?
Absolutely.
that was the reason why.
That, and we were able to determine on that case that the individual who loaned the vehicle didn't know what that vehicle was being used for. He just loaned it to somebody or rented it to somebody, and that person was out committing crime, so we were able to work that through. So identifying the tags, it's always good.
Yeah.
Clock helps us a lot.
Yeah, I heard it happen pretty fast, so that's good.
Very, very quick. The only other thing to mention is to keep the Memphis Police Department in your thoughts and prayers. They lost an officer, and we have another one that's critical from the crash. So a lot of bad there, but city of Memphis needs your thoughts and prayers too. So otherwise, we're looking good.
Thank you. Any questions for Lieutenant? Thank you very much. Chief Harville.
Hey, good evening. This will be your July 2024 fire report. We had a total of 99 responses. 65 were EMS, 34 were fire-related. We provided mutual aid 21 times. We received mutual aid 8 times. We had 27 calls south of Interstate 40, 11 calls on Interstate 40. C-Shift responded to a water rescue on Loosahatchee at Highway 70 near the Fayette County line. Total of 21 inspections, 1 smoke alarm check, none installed. Crews completed annual walkthrough at the Verizon switching station, which is a substation here in Arlington. The Fire Commission also, we hosted them at Fire Station 2 for 2 days so they can take care of Tennessee Fire Commission business. And we were able to perform agility testing, written testing, and interviews for 5 possible fire candidates to fill our current vacancies. And when both companies were tied up on the water rescue on Loosahatchee, we had a possible working structure fire. Ended up being nothing, but Shelby County sent a full response in to handle that call while we were working the rescue call. And that completes my report.
Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions for Chief Harville? Thank you. Just a few announcements. Tanya, Chamber, do you have any announcements you'd like to make?
Thank you, Mayor. Next week, next Wednesday, is our August luncheon. We're doing something a little different this time. We'll have a panel of some of our chamber nonprofits, and they'll get a few minutes to talk briefly about what they do, and they'll be set up in another room at the facility so people could come by and talk a little more. So if you want to come out and support those people, you'll know many of them because they're active in the community. Then we've got the Music on the Square on the 17th of August, and then we've got the 5K on September 7th coming up. All that information is on the chamber website.
Great. Thank you, Tanya. Just a couple quick ones. Let's see, the September, everybody remember the September BMA meeting will be on September 3rd, Tuesday, instead of Monday because of the holiday. We will also have swearing in that night. Working with staff on that right now. Are we doing pictures, Mrs. Durant, then too? Yes, sir. Okay, so we'll have pictures. I forgot to mention something to Kathy, but I know that Tanya has a new town guide going out, and I don't know if we can do something with Dwight before then or not, or if he has a shot that he may be able to use, but if y'all could help coordinate that. Otherwise, we're going to have to look at this mug right here for another 4 years in the town guide. Russell, he's not even paying attention. I believe the day will work. Okay, you what? I believe the day will work. Okay, good. Okay, thanks. All right. I just got through, I got a phone call from Senator Taylor earlier, and I told Kathy, and then we got an email also from Representative Leatherwood, but good news, we've got the LPRF grant for the soccer field lights. We got approved from the state on that, so we will be getting official notification within the next week or so, but that's good, and hopefully that'll work out for Mr. Upchurch moving forward. Everybody, please be patient later this week. I know traffic's already picking up a little bit. When schools go back on Thursday, though, it gets really crazy, so get ready, Oscar, right there by your house.
It's a madhouse.
It is. And last thing, I know he didn't want to say anything, but this is Russell Wiseman's last meeting tonight, so I'm going to say it right now. We appreciate your service. He threatened staff, he threatened everybody if they did anything, so we're not even going to give him a clap or a round of applause, but it would go, I can't at least not say something real fast. didn't want a big deal, Mabe, so we're not making a big deal. He's got a little pin set, and he's got a thank you and a that-a-boy from all of us. So we appreciate the work that he's done, and he's probably going to be asked to still continue to serve on some sort of board and some sort of issue. So, gotcha. So, thank you. Any other announcements from the board? All right. We did have committees met last month, Design Review, Planning Commission, and BZA. Actually, IDB had just a big meeting right before this meeting, which we'll discuss here shortly. And the treasurer's report is on file. So now we'll get on to old business. We're on to item A, second and final reading of ordinance 2024-09 to amend the Arlington zoning ordinance, revising the language concerning fence materials and construction. We do have a public hearing on this. Mr. Crater.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Concerns with fencing have been voiced to staff by members of BMA. As such, revisions to the zoning ordinance are being proposed. Fencing in the town of Arlington is governed by the zoning ordinance, which applies to any fence constructed in the town, and the design guidelines which govern commercial, multifamily, residential, perimeter, and common open space fencing in single-family neighborhoods. In response to requests made for increased regulation of fencing in Arlington, staff is proposing revisions to both documents. The following proposed amendments were heard by the PC and recommended for approval as written on May 20th of 2024. The proposal was heard by the BMA for a first reading on June 3rd of 2024. The accompanying revisions to the design guidelines were heard by and recommended as written by the DRC on May 14th and subsequently approved by the BMA on June 3rd of 2024. These proposed amendments are intended to provide clarity and improve aesthetics of fencing in Arlington without placing an undue burden on homeowners. Chapter 6, Section 6.7 has been modified to provide clarity in materials allowed. Subsection 6.7.1, number 2, includes language providing clarification of allowed materials. This includes removing PVC vinyl as an approved material and placing it on the prohibited materials list. Revisions also include requiring cap and trim of like materials on street-facing sections of wood picket fencing. 6.7.1, number 6, adds language concerning fence heights in the M1 zoning district, allowing for additional fence heights being allowed or in some cases required based on the height of the materials to be screened. These revisions represent a small portion of the scope of the proposal. To provide clarity, a summary of the proposed changes to the DRC guidelines were included in the staff report, and staff is of the opinion that the combination of the revisions of the proposed revisions in these two documents will alleviate issues that have been voiced as concerns. The Planning Commission recommended approval on the May 20th, 24th meeting. Staff concurs with this recommendation. This is the second and final reading of this proposed amendment, and it does require a public hearing. This concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions.
You've heard the recommendation of Mr. Crater. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McKee, second by Mr. Biggs. We are on the main motion. Now we have a public hearing also, so do I have a motion to suspend? So to suspend by Vice Mayor McKee, second by Mr. Brooks. This was published. This is the public hearing for second and final reading of ordinance 2024-09. This public hearing was published in the Daily News on July 9th, 2024. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this particular request, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone here for this? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing and resume the meeting? Motion by Vice Mayor McGee, second by Mr. Brooks. Back on the main motion, discussion or questions on this particular item?
I would just say that DRC is in agreement with this.
And this will take effect immediately after today?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and the meat of the changes that we made were in the DRC guidelines, which puts the majority of the burden on commercial development and perimeter fencing and those kind of things around single-family subdivisions. So we tried to make this as easy on the regular homeowner as possible while improving the aesthetics around town.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Item B, second and final reading of ordinance 2024-10 to amend the Arlington zoning ordinance, chapter 2, revising language concerning the classification of restaurants along with the revision to minimum lot sizes required. We do have a public hearing on this also. Mr. Crater.
Over time, the needs of the town change, and ordinance must be revisited to ensure that development meets the needs and intentions for the future of the town. Several drive-through only restaurants have been proposed, and these types of businesses come very small, with these types of buildings come very small buildings that do not repurpose well, and they, when vacant, tend to sit that way for extended periods of time. To alleviate this issue, staff proposes revisions to Chapter 2 definitions and Chapter 4 zoning district uses and bulk regulations. Proposed amendments to Chapter 2, Section 2.1, staff proposes revisions to the definition of a restaurant, including adding a restaurant with drive-through as classification. This classification would allow for a drive-through restaurant, but require seating for 20 persons minimum. And there was a revision between the first and second reading. We reworded it a little bit to include indoor seating, which would prevent the addition of a patio area to satisfy the seating requirement. Chapter 4 zoning districts and bulk regulations and uses, Section 4.8. Amendments include the removal of drive-through restaurants and the addition of restaurants with drive-through as a use. Additional amendments are proposed in Chapter 4. These affect Section 4.2 bulk regulations for zoning districts and permitted residential densities. Revisions include revising the minimum allowed lot sizes in B1, SC, O office, and M1 light industrial. The proposed increase raises a minimum of 10,000 square feet for each of the above commercial zones and 20,000 to 20,000 square feet and 30,000 square feet for industrial lots. The proposed increases commensurate with the lot sizes currently being developed around the town. The Planning Commission was tasked to make a recommendation on the proposed amendment to either take it forward as written or to take it forward with agreed upon changes. The Commission heard this proposal on the May 20th meeting. Discussion was had concerning pickup-only restaurants that offer no seating, such as ice cream shops and pickup pizza type of restaurants. Staff has discussed and researched these items and has determined that these types of establishments would not be affected by this amendment as they fall under classification of neighborhood restaurants, which does not have a minimum seating requirement. Additional discussion was had concerning drive-throughs attached to in-bays or strip center, and if this ordinance would affect these types of uses. And after much discussion, staff is of the opinion that from both a practical and legal standpoint, these would be treated the same way as any other drive-through restaurants to which the seating minimum would apply. And this is, the first reading was held on this on June 30th of 2024, and this is the second and final reading, and staff recommends discussion of these items, I guess. It's hard to recommend approval since it's a staff thing, but this concludes my report.
There you go. You've heard the recommendation by Mr. Crater. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Brooks. Second by Mr. Biggs. We do have a public hearing, so do I have a motion to suspend and open the public hearing?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Harmon,
Second.
second by Mr. Brooks. We are now in the public hearing for second and final reading of ordinance 2024-10. This public hearing was published in the Daily News on July 9th, 2024. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this particular request, please come forward. Anyone here for this one? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing, resume the meeting?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
Second, all right. We're back on the main motion. Discussion. I appreciate you clarifying some of that on that last page, because I know we had that discussion at the PC
Yeah,
level also.
and we talked about it, Gerald and I and several other staff, we talked about it quite a bit, and it just makes sense that, that these in-cap type of restaurants should just kind of fall under the same, they'd have to meet the same requirements. And I think that's the cleanest way to do it, because you can't really break somebody out just because of where they're at.
It still allows for the internal, if they don't have a drive-through, we talked about like the Pizza Hut or.
Yeah, we're talking about Miko's, Pizza Huts, places like that.
As long as they don't have a window, because those are just not typically designed like the Pizza Hut.
Little Caesars.
Little Caesars, it's adding the end cap to the strip center, it just doesn't flow with the stage and everything.
Question. Let's just say, let's take Sonic, for instance. What would that be, like we have one now? What if one just like it? Say we didn't have one and we wanted to have that one.
That was a discussion we did have, and a Sonic type would not be allowed under these regulations.
Right, because the outside seating does not count.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't really fall within any of the criteria. That's the only one we have, and we've had this discussion, and we can't think of another type restaurant that has that type scenario. And so, if they were to go food, maybe an issue, or we put it in a second location, but that wouldn't qualify.
I just want to make sure we cover all of it.
Can that,
They go to BCA?
yeah, as I say, could it go to
And they can ask for a variance, they can
Only reason I'm asking that's because I can remember back 3 years ago when, you know, everybody wished they had a Sonic because they couldn't go inside to eat.
Makes sense. So, questions?
No, I'm fine with it. There's always gonna be somebody that gets burdened more than someone else when you do these types of things, but for the betterment of our town, I think that it's the right call.
Well, it takes care of some other issues that could come up other than what I just brought up.
And you can't write a rule for all of them.
I'm okay with
That's what you had it for, the zoning and appeals for, so. yeah.
Yeah. Questions? Comments? All right, seeing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes. Item C.
Mayor, I want to recuse myself from, I've got to recuse myself on C and item A. Mr. Patterson is here, and
Okay.
helping with the other items.
Gotcha.
Ms. Avery is here also.
Thank you. We're attorney heavy. Item C, second and final reading of ordinance 2024-11 to amend Town of Arlington zoning map well, it's a long statement. I'm not even going to read about. It's basically rezoning Cypress Ridge totaling 46 acres from E Estate Residential to M1 Light Industrial. We do have a public hearing on this. Mr. Crater.
The applicant is requesting to rezone a lot fronting on Highway 64. Site is located to the east of Eastridge Business Park. The site is currently agricultural in use with trees throughout the property. Currently, the applicant does not have an end user for the property. The intent is to rezone and market the property for light industrial development. The applicant proposes to rezone the site M1 Light Industrial to allow for this type of development. Zone change request should consider the intended future land use of the site, existing nearby uses, and whether infrastructure can accommodate the proposal. Future land use consistency. The future land use plan identifies long-range goals of the town regarding land use. This section of Highway 64 is slated as commercial and industrial. The area that this parcel is located in is designated as community sport commercial along Highway 64 and light industrial employment node back from the frontage. The community support commercial designation is intended for community serving commercial development, providing daily goods and services required to serve a community population radius of 3 to 5 miles. The light industrial employment node designation is intended to provide light industrial land uses providing employment. Development features indicated for community support commercial include connectivity to pedestrian transportation, connectivity to adjacent developments, outdoor seating, and outdoor seating and dining areas. The lack of availability of sewer in this location and the remote location make development of this type challenging in this area. Development features for the light industrial employment node focus more on transportation availability, noting that this designation is more appropriate near or accessible to highways, interstates, or major arterials. Surrounding uses include vacant tract to the north extending approximately a mile to Bragg Road, Eastridge Business Park to the west, vacant land in Fayette County to the east, and a Kubota dealership across Highway 64 to the south. Summary of the surrounding uses, zoning, and land designation is provided below. Utilities and public improvements, sewer is not available to this lot. As such, septic systems will be required for any development, which will require approval from Shelby County Health Department. Due to the limited capacity of septic tank systems, industries requiring a high volume of water for industrial uses will not be able to locate to this site. Water, gas, and electric services should be available through MLGW, and staff is not aware of specific capacities of these utilities nor their capability to adequately serve industrial uses. Planning Commission, in reviewing recommendation, shall make specific findings with regard to the following grounds. Those findings are as follows, with staff comments in italics. FEMA floodplain, approximately 50% of the rezone area falls within the 100-year floodplain of Cypress Creek, which borders the north edge of the rezone area. Any development within this area will require the site to be filled above the 100-year flood elevation. Cypress Creek also has a FEMA-defined floodway covering a small portion of the area, so no development will be allowed in the floodway. Planning Commission was tasked to make a recommendation on the proposed amendment to either take it forward as written or take it forward with agreed-upon changes. Planning Commission heard the proposal at the May 2024 meeting and unanimously voted to recommend approval. First reading of the BMA was held on June 3rd, and this is the second and final reading, and staff does recommend approval of this, and that concludes my presentation.
You've heard the recommendation by Mr. Crater. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. McKee. Second by Mr. Biggs. Well, again, we do have a public hearing on this, so do I have a motion to suspend?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second. We got a Mr. McKee and Mr. Harmon on the first and the second. So we are now suspended and open for the public hearing. This is the second and final reading of ordinance 2024-11. This was published on the Daily News on July 9th, 2024. Anyone wishing to come and speak on this particular issue, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Is anybody here to speak on this particular topic? All right. Seeing none, do I have a motion to close? Motion to close and resume the meeting. That's Mr. Biggs. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McKee. All right. So, real quick, Mr. Crater, I know that one picture kind of showed it, just so everybody knows. We have the industrial park right next to it, and this basically is pinched off between, that's the county line right there, that red dotted line, right? So, that's the town line and the county line, right?
Sir.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody understood exactly where that was.
Where is the floodplain, the 100 years? Show me.
So
do
if
know
you
where it
look,
runs?
so the green will fall within the 100-year floodplain, and this is floodway.
So it don't come.
Light green,
it don't-
dark green.
It
Yes,
don't
sir.
come further this way than I thought it did, okay.
The same one that goes by your house.
Straight up.
What part can be built up?
Just
Just
the light
up to
green.
the dark green?
The light green, yes, sir.
Okay.
Any questions? It's really kind of,
Is that a stub road in the industrial park next to it?
Say again?
Is that a stub road in the industrial park next to it, so they could stub into that if necessary? Okay.
any other comments or questions? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Any other old business? Mrs. Durant. All right, on to new business. Item A, Resolution 2024-27, approving the economic impact plan for Hawthorne Mixed-Use Development Area. We have three different people here that are kind of representing this, so Ms. Durant, who am I turning this over to for this? Tricia? Will? I don't know what. Y'all gave me three names on the agenda, so I'm not sure which one to pick.
Hi, I'm Trisha Adrian. I'm an attorney at Hare Shelton. I represent the IDB. We just had a meeting right before this where the IDB approved the economic impact plan that's in your packet. And this plan is coming before you today to approve. We have representatives from the developer here. And you as the town, y'all are the applicant. So this one's a little different in that way.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and get a motion in a second on the floor, and that way if there's questions, we can just get it all that way. So do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McKee, second by Mr. Biggs. All right, now discussion. Like I said, I know you're all familiar with Mr. Patterson, with Tricia, if you haven't been as familiar with her, but if you weren't at the IDB meeting earlier, a lot of questions were answered. I know we've been discussing this for 18 months, maybe 16, somewhere in there, and yeah, a lot of discussion on this property, on the challenges of the land and the TIF process, and so we'll just kind of kick things off, or Tricia, explain what happens from here with the county, at least from the county commission, where it goes from here to there, if this is approved tonight.
Right, so if you approve this today, we would take it before the County Commission Economic Development Committee first, before we go to the big county commission. And we're looking at September for that, as far as timing. And so we'll present it, and other representatives will present it to the Economic Development Committee, and typically, if they approve, then it goes before the commission, and do the same thing. The IDB meeting had a public hearing already, and we didn't have one come speak on that, so I just want to make a note of that as well. But that would be the timing. So, I don't know how in the weeds you want to get on this, but before you is the economic impact plan, which is basically the outline of what can happen as far as the development and the TIF, and how the TIF funds go back to the city and county and to the developer to pay for the public infrastructure. As parcels in the plan area get developed, the IDB will, and the town, depending on where it is, will enter into development agreements. So we'll have separate development agreements for separate parcels in that plan area. And that will have the mechanism of really how it works. And then if there's any financing related to this, which there likely will be, that will go before you and the IDB. Typically, it would just go before the IDB, but since you're the applicant, we would do both in that situation.
Does that mean October for the Shelby County Commission? Let's go for the Economic Committee first, and then October?
Probably both of those meetings in September, to go to the committee, right before you turn and go to the full commission.
It's
They usually have two meetings. With like
They've only got one meeting in August, so that may, from a timing perspective, made it challenging to get in front of them after this. So what we're doing, for, just to back up a little bit, we're using a portion of the property tax growth to fund public infrastructure associated with this. There's talk previously about raising the elevation. This site in particular is exceptionally challenging to develop. It's going to take a tremendous amount of fill, and so as a result, it's not economically feasible to develop it in the kind of way it's being contemplated with. It's going to generate the same sort of revenue for the town without this particular incentive. And so what we will do is use a portion of that growth to fund the public infrastructure that's fill, it's the two bridges they'll have to put in, roads, traffic signals, all of that, to go through from that standpoint.
And it's much better if you have the opportunity to do it all at once and not piecemeal it. You couldn't do a TIF, well, I guess you could, but individual parcels of land sold, but this is all being developed by one developer, so it's.
And so I think to your point, Mayor, there's multiple parcels that are above and beyond the Hawthorne project being included in the plan area. And the reason for that is some of the offsite improvements and being able to leverage the growth associated with Hawthorne in order to fund some of those eligible expenses. Again, roads, Mr. Hill's talking about the north-south road that's necessary, traffic signals that are all off-site from this project. By using this mechanism, the town will be able to leverage property tax growth from Hawthorne in order to pay for those improvements, not have to do it themselves.
But this is the area that we're looking at, or
Correct, that's the plan area.
that's the plan, right?
So the taxes generated from that area over and above what's being generated now, that's what would go into the TIF. And then it's split
which is-
percentages. A portion goes to the IDB as admin fees, a portion goes to Shelby County trustee, and then a portion will go back to whoever's developing it at the time and the city and county as regular taxes.
Yeah, because we're looking at difference between the tax right now compared to what it's gonna be, and it's gonna be yearly changing, correctly?
Yeah.
After they
Really
start.
changes how much is generated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, certainly. As, you know, as they bring more parcels on, and you add them to the tax rolls, you know, developed land pays more property taxes than undeveloped land. And so each year, as we move through, parcels will be added to the rolls, as it gets developed. Property tax, and it's that growth in portion of property tax. You know, I've sat down individually with every single one of you the last several months, and sort of explained the flow of funds, through that process that,
Now, what, you know, we talked about this, but what, the taxes that, like we're collecting now, what will we be collecting until the project gets started?
so in.
Kind of break it real short, if you don't mind.
In TIFs, for, so this particular, tool, everybody's always paying 100% of their property taxes, right? Whereas you look at the Ford, project that's down the road, they got a pilot, so they're only paying a portion of property taxes that they otherwise would. Here, everybody's always paying 100% of their property taxes that are due, parcels, on the ground. Talk about the base rate, that is the property taxes generated by those parcels today. The town will continue to receive 100% of those proceeds. Between that number today and then what it's gonna generate build out, there's an increment or a difference between the two. There's a flow of funds, debt service, and money that goes to schools before you calculate what could go towards the TIF. It's a, once that stuff comes out, there's a portion of the money that goes into the TIF fund, and it's those funds that are used to pay for the infrastructure within the plan area.
But the, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what the properties creating today is like $39,000?
I think it's 300.
Oh, is it 300?
Or maybe it's 3, it's in the, it's in your,
Properties, you're talking about all of the properties within the district.
Yeah,
That sounds roughly right.
yeah, it wasn't.
it's not very much.
No, I mean, the Hawthorne projects themselves, I mean, it's
I mean,
Yeah. That's listed in the economic
About how
impact
much?
plan.
I mean, it's in the thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Build out, we're talking millions.
yeah.
That's what I read.
Millions of dollars annually, so the incentive applies to property taxes and then some personal property taxes. But there's also the hotel motel tax, that 100% of that will flow away to the development. Sales tax generated for businesses there, flows the exact same way it does today. Just without the over, you're not going to see that growth, not going to leverage it. Pay for public improvements, it can't be used to build the buildings, it can be used like that.
And it is using not only Arlington property taxes, but Shelby County. What's
Yeah,
being
so-
paid to Shelby County property taxes also go into the,
That's the request of the county commission next month.
Yeah.
what if they say no? I'm just curious, like what, if they say no? does-
Cautiously optimistic they're not. We've had some communications with the county already, know that this is coming through. And what they're not going.
Also, you're the banker,
In order
right?
to use county dollars, just like y'all have to approve it, if y'all don't approve it, then the IDB can't, use the total towards, for eligible improvements. Thanks for the county.
Maybe I read something wrong, and it's very possible, because there was a lot of lawyers speaking. If they said no, you could still do it with just the Arlington tax dollars, is what I read.
In theory, part of the problem is, and the reason we're asking.
Well, I know what the problem is, but that would be what. could happen.
Technically, you could do that, yes. If the project could still go forward without the TIF, which is unlikely.
But as the applicant, y'all may change your mind, right? If the county says no, I would say, y'all are the ones asking for it.
We have that
They'll
option.
back that approval.
Okay.
But I hope that's academic, not something that we get into.
Well, I mean, the only comment that I have, and let everybody else speak, but, I'll just say this, when this was first brought and sat in there the first time and read about it and talked about it, I was a skeptic originally. I was like, yeah, I don't think this would be good for Arlington taxpayers. But then, after learning about how the financing works, no offense to the developers, but I really don't care if it helps you or not. But it does help Arlington, and that's what I care about, is that, that Arlington's gonna benefit. So that's the way I'm
Speaking of developer, Mr. Rudd, you come on, I just want to ask you one question real quick. Since you traveled this way, I will at least let you have a write-off on it or something, I guess. What is your timeline from, I mean, estimated, I know your timeline's going to change as it goes, but what is your timeline upon approval of this?
Sure. So first, good evening. Chris Rudd of the Beacon Companies. We represent the Hawthorne development. Our timeline is pretty immediate. We have been working diligently behind the scenes with a pretty large fleet of engineers on this site. As you know, it's a complex site. There's a pretty significant creek that runs through the site, floodplain, a lot of dirt movement, 2 bridges, new intersections at Airline Road that are signalized. So there's a lot of moving components here that are very complex, and we've already started. We closed on the land almost a year ago. So we've owned the land for almost a year now, hard to believe. You know, we've been talking about this with you all, and I know you guys you've spent tremendous amounts of time on this, but we've been talking about it for almost 2 years now. So our timeline, we've already started, you know, all the planning work behind the scenes, obviously, but we'll be hoping to submit for permits very soon after the completion of this project, or this process. So we're excited and really anxious to get going.
Any questions for Mr. Rudd? All right, thank you. I just appreciate that. Any other questions for Mr. Patterson, or Tricia, Kathy, staff, anybody?
Only one for Mr. Patterson. What is the usage that we can use the TIF money on for the town of Arlington?
So the uses are defined in the IDB statutes, daily public infrastructure within.
Buildings? Community? Type?
Public facilities, sewer lines, water lines, street lights.
Red lights, street
Red
lights.
lights, certainly traffic signals.
Like
Passive
landscaping.
trails, yeah, I mean,
trails.
so there's the property adjacent, Hawthorne development, it's the adjacent, it's on the other side of the creek.
On the other side.
Yeah, there's been some internal discussions about connecting some of our, some future trails to the town on that parcel that connect to some of the things that they have to do for Hawthorne. Those sorts of things. I mean, they're laid out, identified in statute, referenced in the economic impact plan.
Yeah, main thing I just noted is not just the little piece of the property they're talking about on our part for infrastructures, or other than that.
Correct. It can be used in
Can it,
the entire plan area.
Can the town use that money for some money that's already spent, or does it have to be spent?
You can, no, yeah, you can recoup it later. I mean, that's what would happen, because really you need to put the public infrastructure in there before buildings get built, before the taxes go up. So, yeah, you're gonna get reimbursed. Typically, it's done through a loan. You know, if the town has money and they wanna go ahead and pay as you go, you can definitely do it that way as well.
Would it be future infrastructure, not something we've already spent money on now? I mean, prior to this date, I guess, or prior to this.
Well, you can be reimbursed for, like, I mean, if you're.
Like the land that's in this district.
For my firm's bill or eligible expenses, related to the project.
Or what about the land that we just purchased?
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's funds available.
Okay. And just for people's awareness, this is where we talked as a board about putting town hall, and so there's going to be infrastructure that has to go in to build a new town hall. So I guess for everybody else,
Lots of money to be spent, not enough.
Yeah, that's,
We could-
Well, okay, on that, do we as a board get to decide what that money gets spent on, the town's portion, not the developer? I mean, well, we kind of do on the developer, but.
You're limited of what it can be spent on by the INDAP plan and that matches with state law.
Yeah, but as long as it fits in those parameters, we could.
yes.
If you're talking about actual dollars in the door, that's obviously, since we're talking about property tax growth, that's not gonna come until, the developer executes. So, ultimately what the board decides to do is, those actual decisions are a few years down the road.
It may not be this board.
Certainly not gonna be the same.
Well, hey, I know that for a fact. He's already left.
Just saying, it could be,
So,
it might not be.
Touche.
Everybody.
Thanks, you've answered all my questions before and tonight. Thank you.
I had my answers long before we got here tonight.
Yes, if you have something you'd like to add or bring to the conversation.
Sure.
My apologies for getting into the weeds, I don't know if this is part of it or not, but I was looking at the boundary, and there's a small triangle property on the west side of the airline that's not included in the boundary, and that happens to be the location where the new intersection would be built on airline, and I'm wondering if money can be spent outside the boundary. Is that correct? You're spending money within the district of those
But you will get, but you'll be getting regular tax revenue from this property too, so,
Were you talking about the interchange, or you?
It's the little triangle of property between Summers Road and Airline, down almost to the creek.
Oh, yeah.
That's omitted.
John owns, Heineman
What
owns
I'm
that.
wondering is, that's gonna be about where the new intersection on Airline will fall. Goes to the boundary, Jesus, come on.
Oh, that's where the,
Yeah, it's showing it right there, yeah.
Mr. Hyman has a tiny little sliver of
It's very small. But he,
I didn't really catch that either.
here it is. You can take this.
so it doesn't
he's,
specify property boundaries, it's district. So
no, it does, it's in the drawing, yeah.
So that is included?
Anything within the boundary, if he says if it's out, then it's not included.
Why was that not put in there?
I don't know.
He doesn't own everything. I mean, there's other parcels in here that are owned by other people.
hey,
Maybe we can give John's permission.
Can it be amended before then, or can it be amended at?
I don't know if it needs, not enough.
Talking about putting a light up.
I don't either.
satisfy the cost. Precise technical matter, you really don't. You're gonna have traffic, signal poles on the other side of the road. They're correctly related, that's the electrical or
Okay. If the two attorneys are saying they're not overly concerned, I guess I'm not concerned, right?
My only concern was that the money could be used on that.
Yeah, I know, and I see what you're talking about right there, so that is,
Well, that's kind of how the money has to flow. It has to flow closest to the development as you go out to Airline, that north-south road, going up to Milton Wilson, that interchange at Mr. Hills. That's where any TIF money is going to be spent from, in conjunction with that development, including if we have to raise half of Summers Road, depending on, Mr. Road can't raise just half of Summers Road. That floodplain has to be done.
Certainly, yeah, it's justifiable, so I don't know what
Yeah.
would be an issue.
It's all in conjunction.
It's not like you're trying to build one.
well, as long as there's a comfort level and it's been addressed or noted, then thank you for that point, Mr. Hill. Do you have something else you need to add, or? You always have those zingers that catch us there. Engineers. Engineers, that's all right. Yeah, that's all right.
When you speak.
Any other discussion or questions? This is the time. All right, seeing none. Just for, I guess, for the county commission, do we have to do like a roll call vote or anything for that, or is it just make sure?
I mean, it was unanimous.
Okay.
At the ID.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure, okay. All right. So you've heard the recommendation, heard the discussion. All in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Thank you. And I guess if you don't have anything, Tricia, if you want to go, you can slide on out. However, I always try to be respectful of everybody's time. Item B, Resolution 2024-28 to enter into a professional services agreement with Kimley Horn for the intersection improvements at Highway 70 and Chester Street for the town of Arlington. Is Mr. Hill?
Yes, sir. We've had concerns for some time about traffic accidents and the safety of the intersection of Chester. And it's going to be a long time before we can get money through the NPO to improve that intersection. And so trying to determine if there are some interim measures might not be very expensive, may involve left turn lanes, possibly on Highway 70, so a little bit of highway. But in order to determine if that's feasible, we need to do traffic counts and see what and improve that intersection. We want to do the traffic counts and evaluate the signal.
Heard the recommendation by Mr. Hill. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McKee, second by Mr. Wiseman. And here, bless you. Kimley Horn just needs to set up an office out here in Arlington because.
I think I have one.
Yeah, I know, they have been. So, discussion or questions on this? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Item C, Resolution 2024-29 to enter into a compensatory mitigation credits agreement with the Pick Sweet Company, bank sponsor for the Rossville Farm Mitigation Bank in Rossville, Tennessee, in conjunction with the development of Donaldson Farms Parkway, TDOT. Mrs. Hill, or Mr. Hill, or Mrs. Durant?
I'll take that one, Mayor. This is related to Donaldson Farms Parkway. We have a stream that runs through there. It's about 230 feet long. If you get over 200 feet of destroying a stream, you have to buy mitigation credits to cover that. This agreement that you have in your packet has a number in there. That number has changed. TDEC has reviewed it further, and the number is now in the range of 600. Mitigation credits to be able to build that project. System is that the state gets private entities to create streams. Property that has a stream on it and building a new stream that meanders instead of. To do that, you can sell those to anybody that has to buy a stream credit. Anybody here can set up one of those. It turns out that Pick Sweet, who owns half operation, has done that at Rossville, and so that's where we're buying our stream credits from. I'll give you a permit to fill culvert in that ditch to build a road without paying for those credits. And that's the kindest way I can describe it.
You've heard the recommendation by Mr. Hill. Do I have a motion to approve?
As much as I don't want to say to approve something where essentially we're being shaken down by environmentalists and government, I'm making a motion to approve.
Definitely being shaken down.
Carbon credits.
I heard the motion by Mr. McKee,
Second.
second by Mr. Brooks. I feel like we're buying Bitcoin or something. I still don't understand it.
I can't get anything back off this.
So the 413 goes to how much?
600.
Which which we, a couple weeks ago, we thought was maybe gonna be 700-something thousand, so it was a little less.
It's Pig Sweep.
So, remind me again, who? Sorry, but
They have enough undisturbed streams that they can put into the kitty for us.
Yeah.
So we're paying for that right.
But we're paying them, like, it's
They
like
own-
TDEC doesn't get the money, it's
It
this.
doesn't go to the state, it goes to a private company, Pig Sweep.
Pig Sweep.
But the government set this up because environmentalists pushed it in to say, hey, if you're gonna put a concrete culvert there, then you can fictionally buy property at Pig Sweet's property that they're never gonna disturb, and it takes it off where they can't be.
Allocating a certain,
It's like a shakedown, except the government doesn't even get the money.
It's all about protecting the waters of this state.
but they're taking, I'm not for it, don't get me wrong, but they're taking a portion of basically the same size and saying nothing can ever be done with it.
So
But
the
they've got more
property
land
that
than
we're buying from Pig Sweet can never be disturbed and can't be
But it
covered
wasn't
in.
probably gonna be disturbed.
Okay.
Oh, no.
There are two large tracts of land in Arlington that belong to the mitigation bank, but all of the credits have already been sold. And they are on the north side of Highway 70, on the furthest west boundary on the other side of the landscape company.
So nothing can ever be,
Between us and
nothing can ever be disturbed on that land.
Goes all the way from 70 to the Luzerne River, from that nursery all the way to the Lakefront line.
I mean, smart for them, but it's just,
I could send you a picture on Google Earth of what
You're right.
Louisville had to do near Pocahontas, Tennessee.
they bought the Mississippi River.
They bought a big parcel of ground and made a meandering creek.
Town owns some excess land.
It all depends on people like us being forced to buy it, whether you ever get your money back or not. Risk to that private company building it all, TDEC still has to keep this process in place. Force people to pay them for their ditches.
Now, one little bitty bright spot is, we did find out today, because it is reimbursable through the TDOT grant, but we only have so much money in the TDOT grant. So if you pay yourself back for your stream credits, you're not likely to have enough money for construction.
Does,
Forgot which pot it comes from,
does the
basically.
bank, or whatever it's called, that has this land, does that land, can it be in like a floodway? And they still get credit
I
for
think
it?
it can be in a floodplain, I don't know if it can be in a floodway.
They can be in a floodplain?
You got some property?
Yeah, so we should do that to our land over here that we bought, the part that can't be,
Not already wetlands, we could probably. I mean, you're spending a lot of money to meet TDEC's requirements to build that stream on the hope that someday somebody will buy it.
A lot of money. That's by ours.
Yeah. You can have a recorded deed for your own project.
Right.
yeah, that's what I was thinking, and then we could basically reimburse ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not gonna have Arlington outside of by Piperton now, so we're gonna,
Get the name, except you can't make money off of this, you can Bitcoin.
okay.
Somebody's getting money.
Yeah,
is what it is.
probably
Where we at?
the wealthy
I
get
made the
more.
motion.
Yeah, we've got a motion in a second, we got discussion.
Did try their best to come up with a way to build a road without having to go this route, without having to get into, and there was just no way, was there, Mr. Hill?
Building retaining walls to shorten the stream disturbed area to less than 200 feet. Over 200, they charge you for all of it.
You can't disturb it, right? Put the retaining walls
Couldn't
up.
disturb the area outside 200 feet. Require huge retaining walls,
That would be more expensive than the credits.
more expensive than the credit.
Yeah.
And then you wind up with a
So it's not that we
retaining
didn't
wall.
try, we tried everything we could to see how we could avoid it. And we can't move forward, we've got certification on our right of way, thankfully, finally, but we can't move forward, get our notice to proceed to construction and go out for bid until we get this resolved.
Okay. Well, is there any other discussion so we can get this resolved? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? That item passes. Item D, Resolution 2024-30 to extend the approval of Woodland Estates PD and general plan to the south side of Pinkley Road for a period of 12 months. Mr. Crater.
Woodland Estates Plan Development is a residential PD on a 61.17 acre, parcel located east of Chester Street, south of Pinkley Road. Development includes 74 single-family residential lots. Lots range between 13,500 and 29,084 square feet, with the average lot being 17,810 square feet. This master development plan was recommended by the Planning Commission on August 16 of 2021 and subsequently approved by the BMA on October 4th of 2021 with Resolution 2021-51. The applicant is requesting a one-year extension of the approval. Zoning ordinance section 5.7 states that the BMA may grant an extension in one-year increments. The ordinance goes on to state that modifications may be required in order to comply with regulations adopted since the original approval. Recently adopted amendments to the DRC guidelines concerning perimeter fencing of residential subdivision. If applied to this master development plan, will require revision to the front entrance fencing as proposed by this master development plan. If the board sees fit, a condition should be added requiring updating to meet the current regulations. Several reasons indicated this causes for the delay of forward progress in the project. First and foremost is the access to sanitary sewer. The property is contingent on the extension of sewer to the property. It will be served by the Hall Creek Sewer Extension that is currently under construction and should be available within the requested extension. Secondly, the developer cites interest rate increases while waiting for sewer availability have had a direct impact on the viability of the project. The developer also expects this to be resolved within the next 12 months, which will drive up demand due to a lack of then staff does recommend approval of the request of the extension of the master development approval for 1 year, expiring August 5th of 2025. This approval is subject to any conditions that may be levied by.
Heard the recommendation of Mr. Crater. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McKee. Second? Anyone?
Second.
Second by Mr. Biggs. Discussion, questions? Seeing none? All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes. Any other new business, Mrs. Durant? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the bills for payment?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. McKee, second by Mr. Brooks. Any objection? That's paid. Any other last-minute announcements before we leave? Thank you again, Mr. Wiseman. Appreciate your service. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Won't you make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Wiseman.
Second it.
Second. Any objection? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.